introduce myself. Again, I'm Tom Goldsby. I'm the Haslam Chair of Logistics and Professor of Supply Chain Management at the Haslam College of Business at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I also serve as the co-editor-in-chief of the Journal of Business Logistics. I'm joined today by Dr. Kerstin Höfle. Kerstin is Vice President of Portfolio and Innovation Management at Körber Supply Chain. She's based in Germany. She earned her PhD in management from the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, a very good graduate school. And she's applied her knowledge to leadership roles in the practice of applying advanced technologies to distribution and logistics. She oversees a wide-ranging assortment of automation technologies in her current role. Welcome, Kerstin. It's great to have you with us today. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you in just a few minutes, but I do have a few items to cover with our audience before we get into the main presentation. First of all, even though while we are wrapping up this particular masterclass series, some of you may be joining us for the first time, so let me briefly explain the purpose of this masterclass series. It's to dedicate some time to tackling the challenges of today's increasingly complex supply chains, bringing you the best and most innovative thinking from academics like myself, as well as industry insiders and senior leaders like Kerstin. We're going to try to shed particular light on the aspects of efficiency and safety in the workplace and how those objectives can be achieved simultaneously. And today's session really gets at the heart of that. So you can see the schedule. We're rounding out again this masterclass today, but don't fret. All of our previous sessions are available on demand, just as this one will be available very soon in the next few days. Also, you can view any session on demand from our previous 3 masterclass series dedicated to contemporary topics in supply chain management and the application of advanced technologies. So with that understanding, let's go over some housekeeping items. All of your phone lines are muted. As indicated, we're going to be recording today's class, and it'll be made available to you within 48 hours. And you can have access to, like I said, any of our previous masterclass sessions on this subject or a host of others. Also, I encourage you to submit questions today. At any point in time, you can submit a question. Just go to the GoToWebinar tab and submit a question, and we'll direct those questions to Kerstin at the close of her comments toward the end of our session. Also, I encourage you to take a look at today's handout, which is a report titled Warehouse Automation and Labor, Friend or Foe. With each one of our masterclass sessions, we have a dedicated white paper, and today's is a perfect fit for the topic that we are going to be examining with automation and how it affects safety and productivity. Let's take a look at today's poll question. So today's question is, what is the most promising way automation can assist workers' health and safety? And 43% of you indicated reducing physical strain. Close behind, though, at 36% was support healthy lifting procedures. So I see those two kind of going hand in hand. Matters of ergonomics very much in focus there. And so combined 79% if we look at those two responses together. And then an equal spread across the remaining 3 options at 7% each for reducing back and shoulder injuries. And then another option was promoting social distancing to limit the potential spread of COVID. And then finally, to decrease visual strain from RF screens and paper. What's interesting, we did see a response across all 5 of our options here, but clearly that first option around physical strain and that third option of supporting healthy lifting procedures came in highest in this particular poll. So I think there's some good information here for us to build upon and something for Kerstin to comment on once we get into her session. But let me just frame the topic a little bit. And the way I'm going to do that is by sharing some data that I came across, quite recent data from a market research firm called Logistics IQ, a report that they published in June of this year. So just a few months ago, you see the expected growth in warehouse automation, expressed in US billions of dollars. And there in the middle, you see the estimate of 15.5 billion. And I should point out that that would be a cumulative spend around warehouse automation. It's not just spend going toward hardware, but it would also consider consulting and integration and the full implementation of that technology to give you a better read on this particular estimate. But I do think that the robust expectation of growth here, actually 11.7% cumulative annual growth rate through the year 2025, which is depicted here. You see the market is expected to almost double. I would argue that the growth could actually be more accelerated, particularly for the balance of 2020 into 2021, given the issues that we face here and now. Certainly COVID is a crisis that we continue to manage. That's leading to a surge in e-commerce. Also, there's the need to move more volume despite the challenges of recruiting labor and the requirement of social distancing, resulting in work redesign for warehouse activities. So this recent and anticipated growth is generating immense excitement in the automation market, as depicted on the next slide. Well, the graphics you see on this slide on the right-hand side are too small, they're too compressed to really decipher who's there. You might squint and make out a few companies here perhaps, and certainly Kerber is going to be featured in many of these boxes. But you can tell from the immense array of colorful logos that we see a lot of activity in the various domains of the automation space, from WMS vendors to ASRS manufacturers to AMR developers and integrators. And if you just look over the statements to the left, I think it iterates the assertion that there's just incredible excitement taking place. You see references there to more than 100 startups operating in this space, along with established giants that have long had a presence in the market. You see automated guided vehicles and autonomous mobile robots. ASRS and picking systems have the highest market share in the warehouse automation market, looking out to the year 2025, which was the extent of this particular market research report. E-commerce fulfillment is the biggest factor driving the adoption of warehouse automation technologies, and based on the reading and conversations I've had, I would back up that assertion. And then finally, high warehouse rents, shortage of skilled warehouse staff, and increasing staff costs are driving even higher adoption. So I think those echo some of the sentiments I shared in the previous slide. So I'm going to share just one more slide with you, and then we'll turn things over to Kerstin. And this is just a little bit more of a market breakdown in terms of how money is presently being invested, spent in the automation market, and the expectation of what 2025 is going to look like. And you see that there's considerable investment across these conventional categories of technology in terms of hardware, software implementation, with the single largest share being found in the integration services. So those who are going to bring the solutions from mind to implementation. And what's going to be interesting for me as we hear Kerstin's comments in a moment is that she's going to be introducing some technologies that don't fit cleanly into the conventional categories found here. So Kerstin, without further ado, I explained that the market is showing immense enthusiasm for adopting autonomous solutions in our warehouses. Why is there so much excitement around these technologies, and how can they enhance safety as well as productivity?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, Tom, and welcome to everybody. I think there's so much excitement behind these technologies because more and more technologies are evolving, and we can see that there's really high potential to improve safety and also increase productivity, just to name two target dimensions of automation in general. And let's just start, and I started to high-level structure this topic a little bit, because for me there are two major aspects that we can have a look on today. One aspect that are automation technologies that are directly supporting the worker and that are primarily targeting his or her health and safety. So going a bit more into detail, we will find out that ergonomics is one key aspect that is affecting the warehouse workers' health. be it by the design of the workstation or using supportive technologies like exoskeletons that you just mentioned, right? And you said like, do these technologies really fit? And the graphic that you have seen, maybe not, but I think we have seen one big bar on integration services, right? And this is one key or a key service in the automation business is really to combine all the different technologies that are around there. And there are always smart portions of fully automated technologies or supported technologies. So we will also always see a fit. But these days, and I think that's quite interesting when we had a look at the poll result, there's another important aspect where automation technology can support. It's social, or as I call it here, conscious distancing, a measure to cope with COVID-19. There's a lot of technology already existing that can help to cope with COVID-19 also in a warehouse, but also new ones have specifically been developed, and we will have a look into these ones later on. And the other aspects we will look at today is a bit more targeted to productivity. So it's the automation of warehouses, be it the full automation or just a partial automation. We could talk about full automations, so that's really the vision of a dark warehouse, but I will rather skip this aspect today as the productivity gain is quite obvious when we really talk about full automation. So we will have a look on automating single processes within a warehouse or augment manual processes with automation technologies that are supporting the worker, be it for repetitive tasks or in extreme working environments like in freeze temperature or while handling hazardous goods, for example. And at the end, we will also have a brief look on how digitalization can boost productivity within a warehouse. One aspect that I would like to emphasize, and also as the graphic shows, is that automation technologies help to improve both, right? Safety and productivity. It's not always the one or other. In most cases, really both target dimensions are targeted by automation technologies. So that's a little bit about the theory behind. So let's really have a look at the automation technologies that can really help. So let's start with properly designed workstations. So this is really one way to protect the workers' health, ergonomically designed workstations. So the overall objective of these workstations is to ensure gentle movements that don't overstress joints and muscles. So really what has been expected according to the poll to reduce physical strains and also support healthy lifting procedures. As we can see from the pictures, there are several ways to do it. But in general, it's about very flexible designs and heights that can be adjusted according to the body size of the employees. So on the top left picture, we can see the possibility to adjust the workers' platform. And on the other three pictures, we can see the possibility to adjust the height of the goods handled. So in that example, that is a site that has been realized by Kerber Supply Chain Automation. The pallets for picking on this conveyor, they are placed on a scissor table lift, and that lift can be manually adjusted. The worker can use its feet to adjust the height according to the size he needs. So that's really a simple, easy solution, but quite effective to support the worker. And even if we look at some of the solutions that are adjusting the entire workstation or platform to the worker's requirements, this is often already done when the worker logs into the system. So like example on the top left, behind his ID, the system already knows his specific requirements and adjusts the platform automatically so that there is no manual interaction required from the worker. And one thing that I would also like more as an addition that's not directly related to reduce physical strains, but kind of when designing a proper workstation, we should also have a look at the screens and how other equipment is designed. So how is the user guidance? How is the design of supporting software and user interfaces? Because this will go really easy on eyes. And less stress the eyes. And another aspect, it's also important to improve, for example, quick picking quality, right? So if there's really an easy user guidance, it's much easier for the picker to do his work properly and produce less errors. Let's just have a quick look on recent trends in automation technology, supporting technology. The exoskeletons I already mentioned. It's a recent trend that is supporting workers and their physical health. It's like an external frame, so a skeleton that supports and protects the worker's body. There are two different basic types of exoskeletons. There are passive ones. They don't have motors or actuators, and they help supporting the wearer's body and redistribute the weight. And there are powered ones, which are typically used to amp up a worker's physical strength. These exoskeletons, of course, can also be used as an alternative for fully automated solutions. And I think it's really exciting to see how this market will develop in the future. So we can observe the first pilot projects, be it in the logistics industry or in other industries. And the first results out of this pilot project shows that the workers are really benefiting from wearing such an exoskeleton, because they really have less back strain and can work much easier. So one of the site managers concluded that staff is really fitter after a working day thanks to these exoskeletons. It's not really standard in our industry yet, but let's see. I think it's always important to keep eyes open on new technological developments. I would now move forward to an aspect where I also researched a lot about when preparing this session, and that's how automation can really support in fighting COVID-19. I think that's a really important aspect that has occurred in our lives, coping with COVID-19 also in warehouses. So especially in the e-commerce industry, really a booming industry, we can still observe a big manual workforce, what operations had and has to keep running also in these difficult times. And but there's more and more workforce required in these warehouses, right? I mean, we experienced it, at least in Europe, that we really shifted a lot of our daily shopping to e-commerce, especially in the times of lockdowns. So social distancing did not only become relevant in our private lives, but also business had to ensure keeping the operating staff distance and safe. And looking into warehouse technology, there's already a lot of existing technology that can help to slow down the spread of COVID-19, but also new ones have been developed. So in general, as an example, mobile robotics supported picking processes independently which solution or vendor we are looking at already help to fight COVID-19 without any major adjustments, because the automated support of one's manual processes require fewer workers in the building at the same throughput, right? So it's a natural way to get more distance between the workers. And we can also combine hard and software related solutions that even allow for more proactive approaches. For example, the adjusted route or path planning of workers and their robots. And another example we see here are software featured solutions that can support the fight against COVID-19. For example, social distancing feature in the software that is part of a mobile robot. So there's one solution that proactively alerts the worker if he gets too close to another worker that is by the robot. So that is quite interesting, and these approaches are also shown and followed by other vendors, that they put social distancing features and safety vests or in picking gloves that alert the worker with a sound, a light, or a haptic vibration signal if they get too close to each other. So pretty simple things that can already be quite effective. And I believe these technologies show that they don't only support in keeping the workers and the staff healthy, but also to keep warehouses and distribution centers running also in difficult times. Also Kerber, if we move one slide forward, has developed a solution for supply chain resilience and safety in the light of COVID-19. It follows a similar objective like the solutions we have just seen, but it's a pure software-based solution that uniquely works with data from a WMS system to monitor the potential movements of coronavirus. And of course, that's pretty adjustable to the warehouse setup and condition of each individual customer. So I can just encourage you to just do a simple web research. You will find out a lot of examples on how technology can really support in fighting COVID-19. This is super interesting. I have the feeling a really emerging field. I also learned still a bit when I had a look into this topic, and there are so many more partially crazy ideas around this topic, but that's really amazing to see. So I think in general, there's really a lot that supports also helping to fight with COVID-19. It's the workplace design. There are also simple ways to improve not only the ergonomics, but we can add simple things like protective walls or floor visualizations to help workers keeping the distance. I think on mobile robots, it's pretty clear how supportive they are, and also sensor and software-based solutions can really help a lot in keeping the distance and keep the workers' health. Let's now have a brief look on warehouse automation and focus a bit more on how warehouse automation can help to improve productivity. It's always a question where to start, right? I already said if we have the vision of a dark warehouse, I mean, there's a huge productivity gain. But if we look at single processes, we should start with the processes that are most time consuming in a warehouse. And as you can see from this graphic, this is usually order picking that can be then divided into traveling activities, searching, picking, and paperwork activities. If we have a look in technologies that support productivity in these related fields and have a look at the next slide, we again come back to a lot of mobile robotics supported processes, right? So this is really a very interesting and very trendy technology in our industry that supports the worker, but also makes processes very, very productive and much more efficient. And it can be the partial automation of a process or even the full automation of a process. And also other technologies like the Kerber voice picking technologies or vision-directed workflows to support picking processes can help a lot in gaining productivity, especially by reducing search time, right? So if you really have a guided picking process, vision or voice-based solutions can help a lot to increase productivity. And if you look really at the race of automation technologies on the next slide, and what kind of different approaches are on the market to automate picking processes, we just can combine conventional picking processes, then simple person and robot to goods supported processes, where we start with 75 to 150 order lines per hour. Really more sophisticated systems like goods to person or goods to robot automation can already achieve up to 800 order lines per hour. And I think this picture shows pretty clear how automation technology really supports in increasing productivity a lot. I touched one single or one smaller aspect in the beginning, is that automation can also support in extreme working conditions, like in the deep freeze environment. So if we look at the next page, we can see that there are a variety of challenges in the freeze environment, also in freeze warehouses, and automation technology can also support a lot in these areas, because if we automate as many processes as possible and get the worker out of the freezing environment, also here we can gain a lot of productivity and also ensure a productivity win, of course, when we automate these warehouses. let me conclude, because I think I have to keep an eye on the timing, with one final and also one trending aspect is the digitalization. And these days we really talk a lot about digitalization. It's not always that easy to find the proper use case. How does digitalization really support within a warehouse? We have one project within Kerber that really shows how we can improve productivity. We can here see a layer picker cell that is depalletizing pallets, and this machine is still run by an operator, and the machine parameters are more or less set on gut feeling and the experience, of course, of the operator. And we now started an initiative that this machine data or the machine learns while operating, collects the data in a cloud, optimizes stepwise the parameters, and also shares this know-how across the different sites where we have this technology in place. So this is for sure increasing productivity and also supporting the worker and better operating his machine, because he has not select based on best guess. He really gets support from a smart algorithm behind. With that, I would like to summarize, and I don't need to repeat everything, but I believe what we have seen, and it was really just a quick dive into what is all around there, and there's even so much more I could talk about, how really we can benefit from automation, be it on the individual employee, protecting his health, but also to improve productivity. And I think one aspect that I didn't cover is that automation, especially in these days, can also help a company to become an attractive employer, especially due to the COVID-19 situation, that there is the right technology to keep the workers' health. And with this, I say thank you, and I'm looking forward to some interesting questions, maybe.
Sehr good, Kerstin. Thank you so much.